That number will cost you $3.2 million. Emily Carter said it gently, but the sound cut through the private dining room like glass breaking. Daniel Whitmore's pen stopped an inch above the signature line. The room at La Belle Maison in Midtown Manhattan fell quiet except for the faint clink of a whiskey glass settling against polished wood. Daniel did not look up right away. He finished reading the line as if the interruption did not exist, then slowly placed the pen down. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice controlled and even. "Did you just correct my deal?" Emily stood beside the table holding a silver coffee pot, her posture straight, her expression calm. She had been on her feet for 9 hours, moving between tables filled with men who never noticed her face, only the service. But her eyes were focused now, steady and alert. "I believe the projection assumes a growth rate that doesn't account for inflation carryover from last quarter," she replied. One of the partners let out a short laugh. "That's not possible," he said, adjusting his cuff links. "We ran those numbers twice." Daniel finally looked at her. His gaze was sharp, assessing, the kind that had built a firm worth billions. "And you caught something my entire team missed while pouring coffee?" he asked. Emily set the coffee pot down carefully. The metal touched the table with a soft, deliberate sound. "I noticed the percentage shift on page 6, she said. "It doesn't match the baseline assumption on page 2. Daniel leaned back slightly. He studied her now, not as background, but as a variable. Around them, the city moved as always. Yellow taxis slid past the tall windows. A siren echoed faintly from somewhere down Fifth Avenue. Inside, the air felt heavier. "Show me," he said, sliding the contract toward her with 2 fingers. Emily hesitated for half a second, then reached for the pen. Her movements were precise. She turned the pages, tapped once on a column of numbers, then wrote a quick recalculation in the margin. "If you adjust this rate to reflect actual inflation," she said, "your projected return drops by 4.8%. One of the younger analysts pulled out his phone immediately. "I'm checking that," he muttered. Daniel did not look away from Emily. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily Carter." "Emily," Daniel repeated, as if testing. "The weight of it. Do you usually audit financial models between refills?" There was a hint of something in his tone now. Not anger. Not yet respect. Something sharper. Emily met his gaze without flinching. "Only when they're wrong," she said. The analyst's voice cut in. "Sir, she's right." The words landed harder than anyone expected. A silence followed that felt different. It was no longer polite. It was shifting. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, then relaxed. He reached for the paper, looked at the correction, and exhaled once through his nose. "Interesting," he said quietly. One of the partners leaned forward. "We need to pause the signing," he said. Daniel raised a hand without looking at him. The gesture was small, but it stopped the conversation instantly. He looked back at Emily. "Where did you learn to see something like that?" he asked. Emily picked up the coffee pot again, her roll returning as smoothly as it had broken. "Community college," she said. "A few classes." She poured coffee into his cup, steady and controlled, as if nothing unusual had happened. Daniel watched the stream of dark liquid fill the porcelain. Something about the answer did not settle. It was too simple. Too clean. As Emily turned to leave, one of the senior partners narrowed his eyes. He looked at her a moment longer than the others had. Then he leaned closer to Daniel and whispered, just low enough that only he could hear, "Whitmore. I think I've seen her name before." Daniel's fingers paused on the edge of the contract. He did not look up immediately. But for the first time since she spoke, he was no longer thinking about the deal. Daniel did not sign the contract. He closed it slowly and slid it away from the center of the table as if it had just changed weight. "We are not moving forward until every number is verified," he said. His voice stayed calm, but the decision landed hard. One of the partners exhaled sharply. "Daniel, we have investors waiting on this." Daniel glanced at him. Then they can wait another hour. The analyst across the table was already typing on a laptop, fingers moving faster now, pulling up spreadsheets and recalculating projections in real time. A second screen lit up with graphs. Red lines replaced green ones as adjustments were made. The shift was visible. The room felt different. Emily returned to the service station near the bar, but her attention did not fully leave the table. She wiped down a clean surface that did not need wiping, her mind tracking the numbers she had seen. Behind her, the bartender leaned in slightly. "What did you do to them?" he asked under his breath. Emily gave a small shrug. "Poured coffee," she said. But her eyes flicked back toward the private room. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. The analyst looked up again. "Sir, the corrected model shows a projected loss of 3.1 million over 18 months if we proceed as is." One of the partners cursed quietly. Another reached for his phone. Daniel stayed still. He tapped once on the table with his finger, then stood up. The chair slid back with a soft scrape against the floor. "Excuse me for a moment," he said. He stepped out of the room and walked directly toward the service area. Emily saw him coming before he spoke. She set down a tray she had just picked up and turned to face him. The distance between them was smaller now. No table. No partners. Just two people standing near a row of polished glasses and a humming espresso machine. "Emily," Daniel said. Her name sounded more deliberate this time. "Walk me through it again." She did not rush. "The baseline assumption uses last year's inflation rate as if it stabilized," she said. "It did not. The carryover affects your growth curve. That is where the gap starts." Daniel folded his arms. "And you saw that in seconds." "I saw the inconsistency," she replied. "The numbers did the rest." He studied her face, searching for hesitation. There was none. "Community college," he said, repeating her earlier answer. "That is where you learned this level of analysis." Emily held his gaze. "That is what I said." A pause stretched between them. Then Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He dialed quickly. "Mark, I need a background check," he said. "Name is Emily Carter. Works here. Priority." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket without breaking eye contact. Emily's expression did not change, but her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the tray she was holding. It was a small movement. Easy to miss. Not to Daniel. "You mind if I verify who just saved me $3 million, he asked. Emily picked up the tray and stepped past him. "You can verify whatever you need," she said. "It will not change the math." She walked toward another table, where a couple was waiting for their check. She smiled politely, processed their payment, and handed back a receipt with a practice motion. The world continued around her as if nothing had shifted. But inside the private room, everything had. When Daniel returned, the tone had changed completely. The partners were quieter. The analyst had printed out a revised model. Sheets of paper lay spread across the table with handwritten notes and highlighted sections. Daniel sat down and looked at the new numbers. "We restructure the deal," he said. "Or we walk." One of the senior partners leaned in again, his voice lower this time. "Daniel," he said, "I am telling you, that name is not random." Daniel's eyes moved slightly, just enough to show he was listening. "I have seen it in a journal," the man continued. "Advanced modeling. A few years back. Top-tier work." Daniel's fingers tapped once on the paper. He looked toward the service area where Emily was now placing a fresh set of silverware on a table. Calm. Precise. Invisible again. "Get me that article," Daniel said quietly. "Now." The partner nodded and pulled out his tablet. As the screen loaded, Daniel leaned back in his chair, his gaze still fixed on Emily. For the first time, the question was no longer whether she was right. The question was why someone like her was standing in a waitress uniform. And what she was not telling him. The article loaded in silence. The senior partner turned the tablet toward Daniel, his finger hovering over a name that now felt heavier than the numbers on the table. Emily Carter, he said quietly. Published in the Journal of Quantitative Finance. 3 years ago. Daniel leaned forward. The title sat at the top of the screen in clean academic font. Adaptive Inflation Modeling in Volatile Markets. He read the first paragraph quickly, then slowed down. The structure was familiar. The logic was precise. It mirrored exactly what she had just explained standing beside a coffee machine. This is not community college work, Daniel said. The partner shook his head. No. This is top 1%. Daniel's eyes moved across the abstract, then to the author's affiliation. Columbia University. Department of Applied Mathematics. He leaned back slightly, processing. The same calm voice. The same certainty. But none of it matched the uniform she was wearing. Find out what happened after this, Daniel said. There is a gap. The partner nodded and began searching again. Across the room, the analyst printed another sheet. Sir, the corrected projections are stable now, he said. If we restructure the entry point and adjust the hedge, we can recover most of the loss. Daniel nodded once. Do it, he said. But nothing moves until I say so. He stood again, this time without announcing it, and walked back toward the service area. Emily was refilling water glasses at a table near the window. Outside, the late afternoon light reflected off passing cars. Inside, her movements remained steady. She did not rush. She did not look over her shoulder. But she knew he was there before he spoke. You left Columbia, Daniel said. It was not a question. Emily finished pouring water, placed the pitcher down, and handed a menu back to the guest with a polite smile. I will be right back with your order, she said. Then she turned to Daniel. People leave places all the time, she replied. Not like that, he said. Your paper is still being cited. A flicker passed through her eyes. It was quick. Controlled. But it was there. Daniel noticed. You disappeared after publishing something that could have built a career anywhere, he continued. Why? Emily picked up a folded receipt from the table and aligned it with the edge of the check holder. Does it change your deal? She asked. No, Daniel said. But it changes how I understand the person who just corrected it. She looked at him fully now. There was no defensiveness in her expression. Only distance. Understanding is optional, she said. Accuracy is not. Daniel exhaled slowly. That sounds like someone who learned the hard way, he said. Emily did not respond immediately. A server passed behind her carrying a tray of plates. The sound of conversation filled the space again. Normal life continued around them. Then she spoke. I had a partner once, she said. We built models together. We trusted each other. Daniel remained still. And, he asked. And he presented my work as his own, she said. Her voice did not rise. He signed a deal with it. A big one. I corrected him. Just like this. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. What happened? He asked. Emily's fingers rested lightly on the edge of the table. No one wanted to believe the waitress was right, she said. It was easier to believe the man in the suit. The words settled between them. They were simple. But they carried weight. Daniel glanced back toward the private room, where his partners were still reviewing numbers that would have cost them millions. Then he looked at her again. So you walked away, he said. Emily shook her head once. I was asked to leave, she replied. Quietly. A pause followed. Not uncomfortable. Just real. Daniel straightened slightly. Something in his posture changed. It was subtle. Less assumption. More attention. And now you correct strangers for free, he said. There was a hint of dry humor in his voice. Emily allowed a small smile. Only the ones about to make expensive mistakes, she said. Behind them, the senior partner approached, holding the tablet again. Daniel, he said, lowering his voice. There is more. Daniel turned. The partner rotated the screen. A headline appeared beneath the article archive. Investigation closed. No formal action taken. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly as he read the date. Then he looked back at Emily. She had already turned away, picking up another tray, stepping back into her role as if the past had never been spoken aloud. But now there was a question that would not settle. If the investigation had closed with no action, then why did she leave? And who had made sure the truth stayed buried? Daniel did not look away from the screen. The headline sat there in plain text, almost casual, but the absence of action spoke louder than any accusation. Closed with no formal action, he read quietly. The senior partner shifted beside him. That usually means someone pushed it to disappear, he said. Daniel took the tablet into his own hands now. He scrolled further. There was a brief summary. A complaint filed by a junior researcher. Allegations of misattributed authorship. Insufficient evidence. Case dismissed. The name of the senior researcher was partially redacted, but not completely. Just enough letters remained visible to form a pattern. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Pull up Whitmore Capital Archives, he said. 3 years ago. Any deal that used adaptive inflation. Modeling. The partner blinked. You think this connects to us? Daniel handed the tablet back. I do not think. I verify. At the table, the analyst looked up again. Sir, legal is asking if we should notify investors about the delay. Daniel returned to his seat. Tell legal we are reviewing internal discrepancies, he said. No external communication yet. He picked up the printed model, but his attention had shifted. Numbers were no longer the only variable in the room. Across the restaurant, Emily moved between tables with the same steady rhythm. She carried a tray with 2 plates of grilled salmon and a side of asparagus. She set them down with precision, adjusted the placement of a fork by half an inch, and stepped back. Routine. Controlled. Invisible again. But Daniel no longer saw her that way. Name, he said suddenly, without looking up. The partner glanced at him. The researcher, Daniel clarified. The partner tapped quickly, then stopped. His expression changed. Daniel, he said, quieter now. You are not going to like this. Daniel looked up. The partner turned the tablet toward him. The partially redacted name had been matched through an archived conference program. The full name appeared clearly now. Andrew Keller. Daniel's jaw tightened, but his expression did not break. He knew that name. Keller had been a senior consultant on one of Whitmore Capital's largest deals 3 years ago. A deal that had performed exceptionally well. A deal that had relied heavily on a new modeling approach that no one else in the firm fully understood at the time. Daniel's fingers tapped once on the table. A small, controlled movement. Get me the files from that deal, he said. Every draft. Every model. Every email Keller sent. The partner nodded immediately and stepped away to make the call. The shift in the room was undeniable now. This was no longer about a miscalculation. It was about origin. It was about ownership. Daniel stood again, slower this time, and walked back toward Emily. She was at the register now, processing a payment. The screen displayed a total of $48.60. The customer tapped a credit card. The machine beeped softly. Ordinary. Measurable. Clean. Daniel waited until the customer left before speaking. Andrew Keller, he said. Emily's hand paused just above the register drawer. It was brief, but it was real. She closed the drawer with a quiet click and looked at him. "That name does not belong in your restaurant," she said. "It belongs in your past," Daniel replied. Her eyes held his for a moment longer this time. There was no surprise left. Only recognition. "Then you found it," she said. "I found enough to ask better questions," Daniel answered. He placed a single sheet of paper on the counter. It was a printed excerpt from the old deal file that had just come through his email. A section of the model was highlighted. The structure matched her published work almost exactly. Same logic. Same sequence. Even the same variable naming convention. "This built one of my biggest deals," Daniel said. "And it looks like it was yours." Emily looked down at the paper. Her fingers did not touch it. "It was," she said simply. The air between them shifted again. This time it was heavier. Not with doubt. With confirmation. Daniel leaned slightly closer. "Then someone did not just take your work," he said. "They sold it." Emily's gaze dropped for a fraction of a second, then returned to his. "Yes," she said. No hesitation. No softness. Just fact. Behind them, the partner returned, holding a printed email chain. "Daniel," he said, urgency in his voice. "You need to see this." Daniel took the pages. The top email was from Andrew Keller. The subject line was simple. Final model attached. The timestamp was 1 day after Emily's paper had been submitted. Daniel's eyes moved to the attachment name. Carter_model_final.xlsx. He went still. Then he looked up at Emily again. For the first time, the imbalance had fully shifted. Not just in numbers. In truth. He did not just take it, Daniel said quietly. He knew exactly who it belonged to. Emily held his gaze, steady as ever, but something deeper moved beneath it now. Not fear. Not anger. Something closer to resolve. Daniel folded the paper once, cleanly. "Tell me everything," he said. And this time, it was not a request. Emily did not answer immediately. The hum of the espresso machine filled the space between them, steady and mechanical, like a clock counting down something neither of them had named yet. Daniel stood still, waiting, his presence no longer casual. It carried weight now. Not just curiosity, but consequence. "If I tell you," Emily said finally, "this does not stay a quiet correction over lunch." Daniel did not hesitate. "It already is not," he replied. Behind him, one of the restaurant managers stepped closer, his expression tight. "Emily," he said quietly, "we need you in the back for a moment." Emily glanced at him, then back at Daniel. She understood the shift. Attention had moved. Not just from the table, but from the room. "Give me 5 minutes," she told the manager. He hesitated, then nodded and stepped away, though his eyes lingered longer than usual. Daniel noticed that too. "You are under pressure already," he said. Emily gave a small, almost ironic smile. "I have been under pressure since the day I corrected him," she said. She reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was worn at the edges, creased from being opened and closed too many times. She placed it on the counter between them. Daniel unfolded it carefully. It was a printed email. The sender line read Andrew Keller. The subject line was short. "Review this before submission." The body of the email was even shorter. "Looks solid. I will present it tomorrow." No mention of her name. No acknowledgement. But attached below was a timestamp and a file name that matched her work exactly. Daniel's eyes moved across the page, then back up to her. "You kept this," he said. "I kept proof," Emily replied. Her voice stayed even, but there was something firmer in it now. Not defensive. Grounded. "And the university still closed the case," Daniel said. "Because he had the contract," she answered. He signed first. He presented first. That is all they needed. Daniel folded the paper once more, slower this time, as if the act itself carried meaning. That is not all I need, he said. At that moment, his phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. His expression shifted. Not dramatically, but enough. Keller is on his way here, he said. Emily blinked once. What? I called him 10 minutes ago, Daniel said. Told him there was an issue with an old model tied to one of our deals. He said he was nearby. Emily let out a quiet breath. It was not fear. It was recognition. The kind that comes when a past you buried decides to walk through the front door. You move fast, she said. I move when something matters, Daniel replied. Across the room, the front door opened. A man in a tailored navy suit stepped inside, brushing a light layer of city dust from his sleeve. Andrew Keller looked exactly like the kind of person who would be believed first. Confident. Composed. Already scanning the room as if he owned part of it. His eyes landed on Daniel immediately. Then they shifted. They found Emily. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. It disappeared just as quickly. He walked over, extending a hand toward Daniel. You said there was a discrepancy, Keller said. I came as soon as I could. Daniel did not take the hand right away. He glanced at Emily, then back at Keller. There is, he said. And I think you already know exactly where it is. Keller's smile held, but only just. I am not sure what you mean, he replied. Emily stepped forward then. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just present. Keller's eyes shifted to her again, sharper this time. Hello, Emily, he said. The way he said her name was different. Familiar. Controlled. As if nothing had ever happened. Emily met his gaze. You spelled it wrong in your file, she said. The words were quiet, but they landed with precision. Keller's expression tightened, just enough to confirm what Daniel needed. The air in the room changed again. This was no longer about numbers. It was about ownership. About truth standing in the same space as the person who tried to erase it. Daniel stepped slightly to the side, creating space between them. Not separating. Positioning. We're going to go through this model together, he said. Every line. Keller let out a short breath, then nodded. Of course, he said. If that is what you need. Emily did not move. She watched him, steady, as if measuring something far beyond the document. Daniel looked between them both, then placed the folded email on the table. Good, he said. Because this time, we are not skipping the part where the truth shows up. And for the first time since Keller walked in, there was a question hanging in the room that no one could ignore. What would happen when the man who took everything was finally asked to explain it in front of the one person who could? Prove it. Daniel did not sit. He remained standing at the edge of the table, one hand resting lightly on the back of the chair, his attention fixed on the two people in front of him. Keller pulled out a chair and sat down with controlled ease, as if this were just another meeting on his calendar. Emily stayed where she was. She did not take the offered seat. That choice alone shifted something. Keller noticed. You can sit, he said, gesturing casually. This might take a while. Emily shook her head once. I am fine here, she replied. Her tone was neutral, but it drew a line. Daniel caught it. He moved the folder of printed models to the center of the table and opened it. We start with this, he said. He turned the first page toward Keller. Highlighted sections marked the identical structure between the old deal and Emily's published work. Keller glanced at it briefly, then leaned back. It looks like standard modeling logic, he said. Nothing unusual. Daniel did not respond immediately. He flipped to the next page. This one had a column of variable names circled in red. Each one followed the same pattern. Carter underscore A1. Carter underscore B2. Carter underscore adjusted curve. Keller's eyes flickered, just once. Standard naming conventions, he added. You would be surprised how often people use similar systems. Emily stepped closer now. Not confrontational. Precise. She reached into her apron again and pulled out a small USB drive. It was matte black, unmarked, the kind you could miss if you were not looking for it. She placed it on the table without a word. The object was small, but it changed the air in the room. Daniel looked at it, then at her. What is this? He asked. A copy of the original model, Emily said. Timestamped the night before he sent that email. Keller's posture shifted slightly. It was subtle. A tightening at the shoulders. A recalibration. You kept a copy, he said. Of course I did, Emily replied. I built it. Daniel reached for the drive but did not pick it up yet. You never submitted this during the investigation, he said. Emily met his gaze. I did, she answered. They said it could not be verified. Daniel frowned slightly. Why? Emily's eyes moved briefly to Keller, then back. Because the metadata had been altered, she said. The timestamps did not match anymore. A silence followed. Not empty. Charged. Daniel's hand closed around the USB drive now. You are saying someone changed the file history, he said. I am saying the file I submitted was not the same file I created, Emily replied. Keller leaned forward, his tone still controlled. That is a serious accusation, he said. You are implying manipulation without proof. Emily did not react to the tone. She simply nodded toward the drive in Daniel's hand. That is the proof they never saw, she said. Daniel turned the drive over once, feeling its weight. Then he looked at Keller. You said you sent your model the day after her submission, he said. Keller nodded. Yes. That is correct. And you are certain your file has not been altered, Daniel continued. Absolutely, Keller replied. Our systems are secure. Daniel held his gaze for a moment longer, then reached for his laptop on the table. He plugged in the USB drive. The screen lit up as the files loaded. A folder appeared. Carter underscore model underscore original. Another beneath it. Keller underscore submission underscore copy. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt different. Anticipatory. Daniel opened the first file. Rows of data filled the screen. Clean. Structured. Exact. He opened the second. The same model. But not identical. One column had been shifted. A formula slightly adjusted. Just enough to change the output. Just enough to redirect ownership. Daniel leaned closer to the screen. His voice lowered. You changed the sequence, he said. Keller did not answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the monitor now. Calculating. Measuring. Adjusting his next move. Emily watched him. Not with anger. With clarity. He did more than that, she said. Daniel looked back at her. What else? He asked. Emily stepped forward one final inch. Scroll to the hidden sheets, she said. Daniel's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he pressed the command. A new tab appeared. Locked. Encrypted. His eyes lifted slightly. There is a password, he said. Emily nodded once. Yes, she replied. Keller shifted in his chair. That is unnecessary, he said quickly. We are already reviewing enough. Daniel did not look at him. His attention stayed on Emily. What is the password? He asked. Emily held his gaze. Calm. Certain. Prepared. It is not a word, she said. It is a date. Daniel's fingers stilled above the keyboard. What date? He asked. Emily's expression did not change. But something deeper settled into place. The day he thought I would not remember, she said. And in that moment, Daniel understood this was never just about proving the past. It was about what she had been quietly preparing to reveal all along. Daniel did not move his hands away from the keyboard. The room felt smaller now, as if everything outside the table had faded into the background. Keller shifted again, this time less controlled. "This is not necessary," he said, his voice tightening just enough to reveal strain. "We have already confirmed the discrepancy." Daniel ignored him. His eye stayed on Emily. "The date," he said. "Say it." Emily did not rush. "March 17th, she replied. 3 years ago." Daniel typed it in. The cursor blinked once. Then the file unlocked. A new sheet appeared. Hidden data filled the screen. Timestamps. Edit logs. Embedded comments. The kind of details most people never see. Daniel leaned closer. His expression changed. Not shock. Recognition. "These are internal logs," he said. "They track every change made to the file." Emily nodded. "Every version," she said. Keller stood up abruptly. The chair scraped back against the floor. "That proves nothing," he said quickly. "Anyone could manipulate logs like that." Daniel finally looked at him. Not as a peer. Not even as a partner. As a variable that had just lost control. "Sit down," Daniel said. His tone was quiet. Firm. Keller hesitated, then slowly lowered himself back into the chair. The shift was complete. Daniel turned back to the screen. He scrolled through the log entries. Each line told a story. Initial creation. Edits. Revisions. Then a sequence that stood out. A file export. A gap. Then a new version uploaded under a different user profile. Keller's profile. Daniel tapped the screen lightly. "You imported her model," he said. Keller did not answer. His silence was louder than anything he could have said. Emily stepped closer to the table. "Scroll down," she said. Daniel did. Another entry appeared. A comment field. Not erased. Just hidden deep enough that no one had looked for it. Daniel read it out loud. Adjust attribution before submission. The words hung in the air. Clear. Direct. Impossible to reinterpret. Keller exhaled slowly. "That is taken out of context," he said. "We were collaborating. There were multiple drafts." Emily shook her head once. "No," she said. "There was one draft. Mine." Daniel leaned back slightly, his eyes still on Keller. "You said your systems were secure," he said. "They are," Keller replied quickly. "Then explain why your submission contains her original structure, her naming conventions, and a comment that suggests intentional removal of attribution," Daniel said. Keller opened his mouth, then stopped. For the first time, there was no immediate answer. The room stayed quiet. Not because no one could speak. Because no one could change what was already visible. Daniel reached over and printed the log sheet. The printer hummed as the page came out. He picked it up and placed it on the table in front of Keller. Physical. Tangible. Not something that could be dismissed with a tone or a smile. "This is evidence," Daniel said. "Not a discrepancy." Emily watched Keller carefully. Not with anger. With clarity. The kind that comes when something you carried alone is finally seen. Keller's posture shifted again. Less composed now. More calculated. "What do you want?" he asked, looking at Emily directly for the first time without pretense. The question was simple. The meaning was not. Emily did not answer right away. She looked at the printed sheet. Then at Daniel. then back at Keller. "I want the record corrected," she said. "Publicly." Keller let out a short breath. "That is not how this works," he said. "It is now," Daniel replied before Emily could speak again. Keller turned to him. "You would risk your firm's reputation over something from 3 years ago," he said. Daniel held his gaze. "I would risk more than that," he said. "Because this is not about the past. It is about what happens if I ignore it now." The words landed differently. Not emotional. Strategic. Final. Emily felt the shift. It was no longer just her fight. The balance had moved. Keller saw it too. His eyes narrowed slightly. Then something changed. Not surrender. Not yet. Something sharper. "If you make this public," Keller said slowly, "you will want to be very sure there is nothing else tied to that model." Daniel's expression did not change. "Meaning," he said. Keller leaned forward just enough. "Meaning you should check where that model was used after the deal you are looking at," he said. "Because if you think this stops with me, you are missing the bigger picture." The room went still. Again. Not with uncertainty. With expansion. Daniel's mind moved quickly now. Beyond the table. Beyond the deal. Into something larger. He looked at the screen. Then at Emily. "How many places did this model go?" he asked. Emily's answer came without hesitation. "More than one," she said. And for the first time, the truth felt bigger than all of them. Keller did not look intimidated anymore. The tension that had tightened his posture a moment ago began to ease, replaced by something more deliberate. He leaned back slightly, folding his hands together as if the conversation had shifted onto ground he understood better. "You are focusing on one model," he said calmly. "One file. One moment." Daniel remained still, but his eyes sharpened. "And you are suggesting there is more," he replied. Keller gave a small nod. "I am suggesting that what you are holding is not an isolated incident," he said. "It is part of a system." Emily did not react outwardly, but her gaze stayed fixed on Keller. She was listening carefully now. Not to what he said, but to how he said it. "What system?" Daniel asked. Keller glanced at the printed sheet on the table, then back at Daniel. "You really want to open that door in the middle of a restaurant," he said. "Because once you do, this stops being about correcting a record. It becomes about exposing a network." The word lingered. Network. It expanded the scale of everything in the room. Daniel's phone buzzed again on the table. He ignored it. "Be specific," he said. Keller tilted his head slightly, studying him. 3 years ago, your firm was not the only one using advanced modeling to close deals," he said. "There were others. Private funds. Institutional players. All looking for an edge." He paused just long enough. Edges do not appear out of nowhere. Daniel's fingers tapped once on the table. "You distributed her work," he said. Keller did not deny it. "I optimized it," he replied. "Adjusted it for different markets. Different risk profiles. It performed well." Emily's voice cut in quietly. "You sold it," she said. Keller looked at her directly. "Yes," he said. There was no hesitation now. The admission was controlled. Almost confident. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "How many deals?" he asked. Keller gave a faint smile. "Enough that you might want to check your own portfolio before deciding." "How loud you want this to get," he said. That landed. Not as a threat. As leverage. Daniel understood immediately. If the model had been used beyond that one deal, then exposure would not just affect Keller. It could ripple through multiple firms. Including his own. The balance shifted again. Not away from Emily. But into something more complex. "You are trying to make this bigger so it becomes harder to touch," Daniel said. Keller shrugged lightly. I am pointing out reality, he replied. You can pursue this. You can make a statement. But you will not control where it leads. Emily watched Daniel now. This was the moment where most people stepped back. Where the cost became visible. Where silence became the easier option. Daniel did not step back. But he did slow down. His eyes moved briefly to the laptop screen, then to the printed logs, then to Emily. What else do you have? He asked her. The question was quiet. Direct. It assumed something. Emily did not answer right away. Instead, she reached into her apron again. This time, she did not pull out paper. She pulled out her phone. She unlocked it with a quick motion and placed it on the table, screen facing Daniel. A list of folders appeared. Dates. Locations. File names. Organized. Intentional. I stopped trusting systems after the investigation, she said. So I built my own record. Daniel's eyes moved across the screen. There were screenshots of emails. Copies of models. Notes with timestamps. Even audio files labeled with dates. Keller leaned forward slightly, his confidence tightening again. That is not admissible, he said quickly. Personal archives do not hold up. Emily looked at him. They hold up when they match everything else, she said. Daniel glanced at Keller, then back at the phone. How long have you been collecting this? He asked. Emily's answer came without hesitation. Since the day they told me there was not enough evidence, she said. The room felt different again. Not just tense. Prepared. This was no longer a reaction. It was a setup that had been building for years. Keller saw it now. His expression shifted. Not fear. Not yet. But calculation returned. Faster. Sharper. You think this ends with exposure, he said. It does not. It turns into litigation. Years of it. You will be tied to it whether you want to be. Or not. Daniel straightened slightly. That depends on how clean the truth is, he said. Keller's eyes narrowed. Truth is rarely clean, he replied. Emily picked up her phone again, but did not put it away. She held it in her hand, her thumb resting near one of the folders. Some of it is, she said quietly. Daniel looked at her. Something in her tone had changed. Not louder. Not stronger. Clearer. What is in that folder? He asked. Emily met his gaze. Then she turned the phone slightly so only he could see the label. Daniel's eyes focused. The name was simple. Not technical. Not coded. A person's name. And it was not Keller. Daniel's expression shifted for the first time since this began. Who is that? He asked. Emily's answer came calm and precise. The one who made sure the investigation stayed closed, she said. And just like that, the story moved beyond Keller entirely. Daniel did not speak right away. He looked at the name on Emily's phone again, then leaned back slightly, creating distance from the table without breaking focus. The shift was subtle, but deliberate. He was no longer reacting. He was repositioning. We are not doing this here, he said finally. His tone was calm, but it carried authority that changed the rhythm of the room. Keller frowned. What does that mean? He asked. Daniel stood up and closed the laptop with a soft click. It means this conversation just moved out of a restaurant and into something with structure, he said. He turned to his partner. Call legal. Tell them I want a full internal review opened. Effective immediately. The partner hesitated. Daniel, if we do that without, do it, Daniel repeated. The hesitation disappeared. The partner stepped away, already dialing. Keller's expression tightened again, but this time it was different. Less confident. More alert. You are escalating this fast, he said. Daniel glanced at him. "You escalated it 3 years ago," he replied. "I am just catching up." Emily watched quietly, but her grip on the phone shifted slightly. Not nervous. Intentional. She tapped once on the screen, then turned it back toward herself and opened the folder she had shown him. Inside were multiple files. One of them was marked with a small star. She selected it. A short audio clip appeared. Daniel noticed. "What is that?" he asked. Emily did. "Not play it yet." "Insurance," she said. Keller's eyes flicked toward the phone. "Just for a moment." Then back to Daniel. "You are taking her word over mine based on a few documents and a story," he said. "You are a businessman. You know better than that." Daniel picked up the printed log sheet and folded it once more, slower this time. "I take patterns seriously," he said. "And right now, the pattern is not in your favor." Keller leaned forward slightly. "Then you should also consider the pattern of what happens to firms that dig into things like this without understanding the full exposure," he said. "You could be opening something that costs you more than it costs me." Daniel met his gaze without blinking. "That is why I am not opening it blindly," he said. He turned back to Emily. "You said this name," he added, nodding toward her phone. "The one tied to the investigation." Emily nodded. "Yes." Daniel's voice lowered slightly. "I want to know exactly how they are connected," he said. Emily looked at him for a long second. Measuring. Deciding. Then she reached into her apron again and pulled out something new. Not paper. Not a device. A small key card. White. Minimal. A corporate logo printed faintly in the corner. Columbia University. Daniel's eyes focused. "That is not from a restaurant," he said. "No," Emily replied. "It is from the administrative office that handled the investigation." Keller's posture shifted again. Faster this time. "You should be careful with what you are implying," he said. Emily ignored him. She placed the card next to the phone. "I did not just keep copies of my work," she said. "I kept access." Daniel leaned slightly closer. "Access to what?" he asked. Emily's voice stayed steady. "Internal review logs," she said. "Meeting records. Decision timelines. Everything they said did not exist when they closed my case." The weight of that settled immediately. This was no longer about a stolen model. It was about who allowed it to stay stolen. Daniel straightened. His control was no longer just internal. It was operational. "Then we do this properly," he said. "We verify everything before anyone else touches it." Keller let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but without humor. "You think you are ahead," he said. "You are just stepping into something you do not control." Daniel looked at him, calm and steady. "Control is not the point," he said. "Clarity is." Emily picked up her phone again, her thumb hovering over the audio file she had not played yet. She glanced once at Daniel, then back at Keller. "You are right about one thing," she said quietly. Keller frowned. "What?" he asked. Emily's gaze sharpened just slightly. "This does not stop with you," she said. Her thumb pressed down on the screen. The audio file began to play. And the first voice that came through was not Keller's. The audio cut through the room with a clarity that made everything else feel distant. A man's voice filled the space. Older. Measured. "We cannot proceed with her claim," the voice said. "The firm involved is too significant. Adjust the record and close the file." Daniel's expression changed immediately. Not surprise. Recognition. He knew that tone. Institutional. Careful. Designed to sound neutral while deciding outcomes behind closed doors. Keller's posture stiffened. "Turn that off," he said quickly. Emily did not move. The recording continued. Make sure the attribution issue does not escalate, the voice added. We do not want unnecessary attention. The audio ended with a soft click. Silence followed. Not empty. Loaded. Daniel's eyes moved slowly from Emily's phone to the key card on the table, then back to her. Who is that? He asked. Emily held his gaze. Associate Dean Richard Halpern, she said. He oversaw the review committee. Keller stood up again, but this time there was no control left in the movement. This is illegal, he said. You cannot record private conversations and use them like this. Emily's voice stayed calm. It was not private, she said. It was a recorded committee session. They just assumed no one outside the room would ever hear it. Daniel stepped forward slightly. The shift was immediate. He was no longer observing. He was directing. Sit down, he said to Keller. Keller did not sit. You are making a mistake, he replied. You are stepping into academic governance, corporate liability, and potential defamation all at once. Daniel's eyes did not leave him. I am stepping into documented decisions, he said. There is a difference. The partner returned to the table, phone still in hand. Legal is assembling a team, he said. They want to know if this is internal or external. Daniel answered without hesitation. Both, he said. The word settled like a line drawn in concrete. Keller let out a breath and shook his head. You do not understand what you are triggering, he said. Daniel turned slightly toward him. Then explain it, he said. Keller hesitated. For the first time since this began, he did not have immediate control of the narrative. You exposed that recording, Keller said slowly, and you are not just accusing me. You are accusing the university. The review board. Every deal that used that model. You are creating a chain reaction. Daniel nodded once. Good, he said. Because chains are easier to trace than isolated events. Emily watched him closely now. Something had shifted again. Not just in power. In alignment. This was no longer a question of whether he would act. It was how far he was willing to go. Daniel picked up the key card from the table and turned it between his fingers. The Columbia logo caught the light for a brief second. You said you have access, he said to Emily. Yes, she replied. Then we do not rely on memory, Daniel said. We verify everything directly. Keller stepped forward slightly. You are not walking into that building with this, he said. They will shut it down before you get past the front desk. Emily's lips curved into a faint, controlled smile. They already tried that once, she said. Daniel looked at her. And this time, he asked. Emily met his gaze without hesitation. This time I am not walking in alone, she said. The implication was clear. Daniel understood it immediately. Keller did too. The balance had shifted beyond recovery. Daniel reached for his phone and made a quick call. Get a car ready, he said. We are heading to Columbia. He ended the call and looked back at Emily. You are coming with me, he said. It was not a request. Emily nodded once. I know, she said. Keller's voice cut in sharply. If you leave this room with that recording, you are declaring war on more than just me. Daniel paused for a fraction of a second, then turned back to him. No, he said calmly. I am responding to one that already started. He picked up the laptop, the printed logs, and the USB drive, gathering the pieces with precise movements. Evidence. Not theory. Emily slipped her phone into her apron and took the key card back into her hand. For the first time, she stepped away from the counter without looking back at the restaurant floor. The role she had been holding no longer applied. As they moved toward the exit, Keller remained standing by the table, his expression no longer controlled, no longer confident. Just calculating what came next. And as the door opened to the sound of the city outside, one question remained suspended between all of them. What would they find when the institution that buried the truth was finally forced to open its doors? The car ride was silent. Manhattan blurred past the tinted windows as Daniel reviewed the documents again, his attention moving between the printed logs, the USB contents on his laptop, and the audio transcript Emily had transcribed onto a single clean page. Across from him, Emily sat still, her hands resting calmly in her lap, but her eyes remained alert, tracking every movement, every shift in direction. The Columbia campus came into view 15 minutes later, its stone buildings steady and unchanged, as if nothing inside them had ever been questioned. Daniel stepped out first. "We go straight to records," he said. Emily nodded once. "Third floor. Administrative wing." They entered through the main doors. The air inside felt cooler, quieter, controlled. A receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked. Daniel placed a business card on the desk. "Daniel Whitmore. I need access to internal review archives from 3 years ago," he said. The receptionist hesitated. "Those records are restricted," she replied. Emily stepped forward and placed the key card on the counter. The receptionist's expression changed immediately. Recognition. Clearance. "One moment," she said, reaching for the phone. Within minutes, they were escorted down a hallway lined with framed academic awards and into a secured office. A man in his late 50s stood behind a desk. "I am Director Collins," he said. "I understand you are requesting access to a closed investigation." Daniel did not sit. "I am requesting verification of its outcome," he said. Emily placed her phone on the desk and tapped once. The audio file appeared. Collins glanced at it, then at her. "That recording should not exist outside committee records," he said carefully. Emily met his gaze. "And yet it does," she replied. Daniel stepped closer and placed the printed log sheet beside the phone. "We also have the original model with intact metadata," he said. "And a submission trail that contradicts the final report." Collins's expression tightened. He reached for the documents, scanning quickly. His eyes paused on the log entries. Then he looked at Emily. "You were the claimant," he said. "Yes," she replied. Collins exhaled slowly and moved to a locked cabinet behind his desk. He entered a code, opened it, and pulled out a thin folder labeled with a case number. He returned to the desk and placed it down. "This is the official record," he said. Daniel opened it. Inside were printed summaries, meeting notes, a final decision statement, insufficient evidence, case closed. But beneath the top sheet, something else caught his eye. A stapled addendum. He pulled it free. The paper was different. Internal use only. Collins watched him closely. "That was not included in the public record," he said. Daniel read it silently, then aloud. Recommendation to reopen pending additional evidence. Deferred by administrative override. The word settled heavily. Emily's eyes did not leave the page. "Who authorized the override?" Daniel asked. Collins hesitated. Then he reached for the file again and flipped to the last page. A signature line. Clear. Undeniable. Richard Halperin. Associate Dean. Daniel placed the paper flat on the desk. "So the investigation was not closed because there was no evidence," he said. "It was closed because someone decided it should be." Collins did not argue. "That would be an accurate interpretation," he said. The balance shifted completely. Not assumption. Not implication. Documented fact. Emily stood still, but something inside her settled. Not relief. Resolution. Daniel picked up the addendum and held it next to the audio transcript. Paper and voice aligned. "This is enough to reopen everything," he said. Collins nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "It is." A silence followed. Then Collins added, "But if you proceed, this will not stay internal. It will trigger a formal review across departments." Daniel met his gaze. "That is the point," he said. Emily reached for the folder, her fingers brushing the edge of the addendum. She looked at the signature one more time. Not with anger. With clarity. 3 years, she said quietly. Collins did not respond. There was nothing to say. Daniel closed the file carefully. "We are taking copies," he said. Collins nodded. "I will have them prepared," he replied. As Collins stepped away, Daniel turned to Emily. "You were right to keep everything," he said. Emily gave a small nod. "I learned not to rely on what others keep," she replied. Daniel looked down at the documents again, then back at her. "This changes everything," he said. Emily held his gaze. "No," she said softly. "This just proves what was already true." The weight of that lingered as Collins returned with certified copies, each page stamped and sealed. Evidence that could not be dismissed. Evidence that could not be erased. And as Daniel gathered the documents into a folder, one question remained, sharper now than ever. If Halpern had forced the case closed, then who had given him a reason to do it? Daniel stepped out of the administrative office with the folder pressed firmly against his chest, but for the first time since this began, his steps slowed. The hallway stretched ahead of him, quiet and lined with glass panels reflecting his own image back at him. He stopped. Just for a moment. His fingers tightened around the documents, then loosened again. Emily noticed. She did not interrupt. Outside, the late afternoon light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Daniel exhaled slowly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. His hand was steady at first. Then it was not. His thumb hovered over a contact he had not touched in years. The name sat there. Unchanged. Untouched. His jaw tightened slightly as a memory pushed forward without warning. A different room. Smaller. Warmer. A kitchen table in a modest house outside Boston. Papers spread across the surface. Numbers. Charts. A younger version of himself standing, speaking too quickly, too sharply. "You do not understand how this works," he had said. Across from him, his younger sister had sat quietly, her notebook closed, her eyes fixed on him. She had built the model. He had taken it to a meeting. Presented it. Without her. "I trusted you," she had said, her voice soft but steady. He had looked away. Chosen the deal. Chosen the outcome. Chosen to believe he could fix it later. He never did. The memory lingered. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just clear enough to feel real again. Daniel blinked once, as if returning to the present required effort. His hand trembled now. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for him. Emily watched him. Carefully, her expression quiet, understanding more than he had said. "You do not have to do this alone," she said softly. Daniel let out a breath that felt heavier than the moment required. "I already did," he replied. His thumb pressed against the screen before he could stop himself. The call began. 1 ring. 2. 3. Each second stretched longer than the last. Then a voice answered. "Hello?" It was older now. Softer. But unmistakable. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief second. "It is me," he said. His voice was lower than usual. Less certain. The pause on the other end was immediate. Not confused. Careful. "Daniel," she asked. He swallowed. "Yeah," he said. "I know it has been a long time." Another pause. Then, "What do you need?" The question was simple. It landed harder than anything else that day. Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. His eyes dropped to the folder in his other hand. Evidence. Proof. Everything he had built his life on. And everything he had once taken without asking. I do not need anything, he said slowly. I should have called a long time ago. Silence followed. Not empty. Full of everything that had not been said for years. Emily turned slightly, giving him space, but she did not leave. Daniel's voice wavered just enough to break through the control he had held all day. I used your work, he continued. Back then. I told myself it was temporary. That I would fix it. I did not. His breath caught slightly. He looked down, blinking hard. I am sorry, he said. The words came out quieter than he expected. Real. On the other end, there was no immediate response. Then a soft exhale. I know, she said. Daniel's eyes lifted slightly. Surprise. Confusion. Something else. You knew, he asked. I figured it out, she replied. You were never as subtle as you thought. A faint, almost tired humor in her voice. It broke something in him. Just enough. A single tear slipped free before he could stop it. He did not wipe it away immediately. He let it fall. I should have said it sooner, he said. I should have given you credit. I should have, he stopped himself. The list was too long. Yeah, she said gently. You should have. The words were not cruel. Just honest. Daniel nodded, even though she could not see him. I am trying to do it right now, he said. Not just with you. With something bigger. There was a pause. Then her voice softened slightly. Then do not stop halfway this time, she said. Daniel closed his eyes again, but this time it felt different. Not avoidance. Commitment. I will not, he said. When the call ended, he stood still for a moment longer, then lowered the phone. His hand was steady again. Not because the weight was gone. Because he had finally faced it. Emily stepped closer. That was not easy, she said. Daniel shook his head slightly. It was necessary, he replied. He looked down at the folder again, then back at her. Something had shifted. Not just in the case. In him. We finish this, he said. Emily nodded. Yes, she replied. But as they turned toward the exit, Daniel's phone buzzed again. A new message. From legal. He opened it. His eyes scanned quickly. Then stopped. They already responded, he said quietly. Emily looked at him. Who? She asked. Daniel's gaze hardened slightly, but not with anger. With focus. Columbia, he said. And the message was only one sentence long. We are aware of the material you retrieved. Do not proceed without counsel. The message stayed on Daniel's screen longer than it should have. The words were simple, controlled, and unmistakably deliberate. Do not proceed without counsel. He read it once. Then again. Then he locked the phone and slipped it back into his pocket without a word. Emily watched him carefully. They are trying to slow you down, she said. Daniel shook his head slightly. They are trying to contain it, he replied. He looked up at the building behind them, then back at the folder in his hand. The weight of it felt different now. Not just evidence. Responsibility. We do not stop, he said quietly. Emily nodded. No, she agreed. They walked down the steps together, the city noise rising again as they reached the street. Traffic moved. People passed. Life continued as if nothing had shifted. But everything had. Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time the screen lit up with a different name. His sister. He stopped mid-step. Emily noticed immediately. Go, she said softly. Daniel did not move at first. Then he answered. I was about to call you back, he said. There was no hesitation on the other end. "Where are you?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but there was urgency beneath it. Daniel glanced around. "Columbia," he said. "Outside the administrative building." A pause. Then, "Stay there," she said. The line went dead. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. His brow furrowed slightly. "What is it?" Emily asked. He shook his head once. "I do not know," he said. But something in his chest tightened. Not fear. Anticipation. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The sound of tires pulling sharply to the curb broke the rhythm of the street. A dark sedan stopped just feet away from them. The door opened before the car fully settled. A woman stepped out quickly, her coat half-buttoned, her breath uneven from the rush. Daniel recognized her instantly. The same eyes. The same quiet strength. Just older. Just carrying more years between them. "Daniel," she called. Her voice cracked slightly as she moved toward him. He froze for a second. Then stepped forward. "You came," he said, almost under his breath. She did not answer. She closed the distance between them in 2 quick steps and wrapped her arms around him tightly. The impact of it caught him off guard. Real. Immediate. Her hands gripped the back of his jacket as if letting go was no longer an option. Daniel's arms came up slowly at first. Then tighter. He held her the way he should have years ago. Without hesitation. Without calculation. Her breath hitched against his shoulder. "You finally called," she whispered. He swallowed hard. His eyes closed as the weight of that moment settled fully. "I should have come sooner," he said. His voice broke just enough to be heard. She pulled back slightly, but her hands did not let go. Her fingers trembled against his sleeves. "You are here now," she said. Her eyes were wet, but steady. Daniel nodded once. A tear slipped free again, but this time he did not try to hide it. He reached up, brushing it away with the back of his hand, then let out a breath that felt like it had been held for years. "I used your work," he said again, quieter now. "I know," she replied. "And I hated you for it." The honesty landed, but it did not break him. It grounded him. "I deserved that," he said. She shook her head slightly. "You deserved the truth," she said. "And you are finally facing it." Emily stood a few steps away, watching without interrupting. She did not step forward. She did not step back. She simply gave them the space they had not had before. Daniel looked at his sister, really looked this time. "I am not stopping halfway," he said. "Not with this. Not with anything." She studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Then do it right," she said. Her hand moved from his sleeve to his hand, gripping it tightly. A small gesture. But steady. Real. Daniel held on. He did not let go. The city moved around them, but for a moment, everything else faded. The past had not disappeared. But it had changed shape. It had been faced. And as Emily turned quietly and stepped away, leaving them there together, Daniel understood something he had missed for too long. "Some mistakes do not disappear," he said softly. "But they can lead you back to the people you should have never left."